Why so triggered? For the average person, our experiences on social media platforms are essentially echo chambers reinforcing our existing beliefs and opinions on a loop. Our minds are continuously seeking to preserve harmony between what we know and what we experience. Resultantly, we add, follow, and subscribe to users whose content we can relate to. #relatable is literally a thing on social media. At the same time, users who relate to our content engages with us, and so the echo chamber is both created and maintained. Incremental increases in the filtering of information and engagement through an inflexible belief system has made us exceedingly insulated and unable to constructively engage with information that is contradictory to our existing knowledge. We have become catastrophically indifferent, apathetic, and disconnected from each other. Evidence of this can be seen in the ever-increasing political polarization in the West. Sure, you can argue that it is carefully crafted political rhetoric that polarizes groups, but you could also make the argument that if people had better understanding of each other's lived experiences, that information intended to divide and conquer would have little effect. In this instance, the validity, accuracy, or even fairness of triggering information is quite irrelevant. Nor is being triggered in itself good or bad. However, understanding why we react to certain information in a particularly acute manner can enable us to have more constructive conversations from which we are able to grow. Consider the following illustrative example of an interaction between a black man and a white supremacist. See video in written post. In this video we see an interaction between two people that could have easily escalated into violence as Aaron Courtney, a black man protesting against racism, and Randy Furness, a white man promoting white supremacy, each likely felt justified in their behavior as their experiences were in harmony with their cognition. Most people would agree that the Courtney would be completely justified in being angry and triggered by Furness' abhorrent racism. Some might even say that Courtney would be justified in throwing hands at Furness, but he did not wake up and choose violence. Aaron Courtney's choice to ask the question, "Why don't you like me?" represents an awareness of experience cognition harmony, not only in himself, but also in Randy Furness. If we want to understand, reach and connect with people, we have to look past the surface, even if the surface is triggered AF. Telling someone how wrong they are is not going to change anything because it does not address the mind's need for harmony between experience and cognition. This is especially important on social media, as we mostly don't interact with the person, but rather with their content. For constructive online community engagement, it is therefore crucial that we understand why we are triggered or why someone else might be. The absence of harmony between our experiences and what we already believe causes psychological stress. This is an entirely normal response and is called cognitive dissonance. The discomfort of the psychological stress motivates us to resolve the dissonance. A mature and progressive individual like Aaron Courtney might engage in introspection and consider the source of the dissonance and consider the possibility that a belief we hold might have to change. Most of us, however, do not possess the necessary capacity for reflexivity to engage in such a process. Rather, the easiest way to reduce the psychological stress from cognitive dissonance is to reject the external source of the inconsistency, enter the triggered response. The trigger response then becomes part of one's cognition, and because the same function of the mind of continuously seeking to preserve harmony between what we know and what we experience applies to the new trigger response, we are motivated to seek out experiences that confirm our trigger response. This is typically not hard to find in the comments section of polarizing content. Resultantly, the trigger response of a few becomes contagious, evidenced by all manner of insults, name-calling, and slander. Apart from the obvious, this is also problematic as the increasing momentum of collective rejection of an experiences serves to not only maintain existing beliefs, but in fact reinforces them, further reducing the likelihood of constructive engagement. Decades of research suggest that there is no way around cognitive dissonance, that it might even be an evolutionary function that developed in humans to better survive as hypersocial animals. Similarly, the predictive dissonance model proposes that cognitive dissonance is related to the predictive function of cognition, which is also linked to survival. Amid the endless influx of sensory stimuli, the brain attempts to predict patterns and themes in incoming information to avoid sensory overload. Crucial to this function is the minimization of prediction error. In this instance, dissonance represents a prediction error and must be resolved for cognition to function properly. Cognitive dissonance, or being triggered, as it were, is therefore not inherently problematic. It is simply how our minds function and in fact offers us an opportunity to learn and develop our understanding of the world. However, in order for us to learn from our triggers, we must make a concerted effort to not insulate ourselves from differing views, ideas, and beliefs, whether we perceive these to be right or wrong. We can manage our triggered responses by developing a better awareness of deeply held beliefs that we take for granted. An openness to new ways of seeing the world and a willingness to exercise a healthy critique of our own thinking can avoid us falling prey to base instincts and engage in destructive online discourse.